Welcome to Say More, the podcast where we expand the conversation around what it means to be human. I'm Andy Spray, and I'm here with my co-host, Emily Lawyer, licensed professional counselor. We're answering your real questions, and while we're at it, creating a community where we can grow together and learn how to connect more to self in order to connect more to others and more to God. Hi.
Hi, friend.
Hi. Now, listeners out there in Listen Land, I don't know what time it is, what time of year, what season it is where you're listening. But where we're recording, it's the beginning of fall.
The best.
Don't we love fall?
The best.
Doesn't really feel like fall.
Not yet.
I'm hoping by the time this gets published, it feels like fall. But, you know, it's the greatest time of year. It's my favorite season.
It really is.
Best time of year. And, you know, also, there's a lot going on. Personally, I've had a heavy couple of weeks. Globally, and this could be true anytime you're listening. Globally, there's been things, you know, heavy things. And I told a friend that the energy that I want to go into the fall with, there's only one kind of energy I'm taking with me to the fall.
Which is?
And that is frog and toad energy. Okay?
Okay.
I don't know if you read Frog and Toad.
Yes.
My kids loved Frog and Toad. We read it a lot. We actually had the audio books. We would listen in the car. You didn't know they had Frog and Toad.
Yeah.
So soothing. In fact, I'm going to see if I can dig those out again. Okay. And I'm just,
just for your own personal self.
If I'm not nestled in a hollowed out oak tree, I'm not interested. I would like to be collecting my drinking water from a big leaf that's holding rain. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I want to get like curled up in a walnut to go to sleep.
It sounds so cozy and safe and
it's so safe.
Simple.
And all they do is take naps and eat cookies and occasionally go on tandem bike rides.
Oh, boy.
Really, what more could you want?
What a world.
But, you know, we're talking about shame again this morning. And, you know, this is our first two-parter.
It is.
So we did shame part 1. This is shame part 2. So if you haven't listened yet, go back.
Might want to go back.
And listen to shame part 1. But it was occurring to me this morning as I was thinking about just how frog and toad I want to be, especially when there's a crisp in the air. And I thought, I'm a little bit of a hider, I think.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Okay.
And you were talking to me about, shame and cover up and do you cover up? And I think maybe I'm a hider.
I see.
You know, from as simple as you take the fast food wrappers and you bury them down in the trash. So nobody can
Way
see.
down in the bottom.
Way down in the bottom.
And then cover it up with something else.
Then you put like a respectable paper plate on top of your shameful fast food wrappers. Also, if you are a woman around 40, the internet is going to really want to tell you you have ADHD right now.
That is true. That is true.
And or perimenopause.
That's true.
But definitely, if you're interested in self-diagnosing, Instagram has a reel.
Aggressively chases people down.
Chases you down. But one of those reels that really resonated with me was the concept of a doom bag. Have you ever heard of a doom bag? Oh, my gosh.
What is a doom bag?
My life is a doom bag. A doom bag, now, in the context of ADHD, is if you're overwhelmed, you sort of gather things up and just get them out of your sight, whether it's clutter, whether it's bills, whether it's decor, like whatever it is that's sort of cluttering you visually in your house. You kind of gather it up in a bag or a box. I have so many bags. And then you just kind of tuck it away.
Keeping with the hiding theme.
You keep it away. But yes, so this is what I realized. An offshoot of the doom bag, because I have many doom bags. And again, I think that's from genuine, like I'm just overwhelmed or people are coming over and I've just got to hide it. But I'm going to give you the shame stash. I'm inventing this, but
you're coining a new phrase.
A new phrase. An offshoot of the doom bag.
I got to tell you.
Is the shame stash.
I think this has legs.
Okay. What do you think about
a shame stash? I have not heard of that. It's catchy. It fits.
Yeah. When there's something I don't want to deal with, I'm burying it way down in a drawer, a closet. Oh my, you don't want to look at my closets. I had a friend just come over a couple weeks ago And she was like, she's really, of course, put together and she wears pearls. And we did an organizing project. And it was like, you have to really love me and I have to feel safe with you for us to dig through some closets.
See the closets.
And this was a very innocuous, like, kids game and craft closet.
Okay.
And I still felt deep shame.
Okay.
Because there was some doom boxes and some shame stashes in that closet.
So what you're saying is when it came out of hiding,
I didn't like that.
You did not like that.
I mean, eventually it felt good.
Okay. That's gonna fit in perfectly for
great.
today.
Great. I'm so glad. But I'm just saying, it occurred to me that you were asking about cover-up stories. And you said, do you have a great cover-up story? And I was like trying to mine my brain for all of these funny, like every 80s sitcom had some plot where somebody broke a vase and they had to spend the whole episode gluing it back together. Or they threw a party when their parents were out of town and the coffee table got broken. Right. Like this, I'm for sure was a Growing Pains episode, right?
For sure.
And they had to, fix it or replace it. And I was like, I just don't have a good cover-up story. Do you have a good cover-up story?
I do. Actually, yeah. I think that theme carried even into the 90s because maybe this is partially what you and I kind of find ourselves even gravitating towards. Because my favorite cover-up stories are the ones where people have done something. Like I mentioned, one of my favorites is when Ross gets a pair of leather pants.
Of course.
From Friends.
He was trying something out.
He was trying something out. And then it just keeps getting more progressively worse the more he tries to cover it up.
And then he makes a paste.
So yes, no, but one came to mind. This was early for me.
Okay.
I'm talking, I must have been at least as young as 5.
Oh.
And it escalated over days and involved an actual crime.
What? You committed an actual crime?
Little good girl,
You're so
Emily.
pure. What happened?
We had a little general store that my mom and I went to almost every day. And I remember in the checkout line, right at my line of sight, were, those individually wrapped pieces of Bazooka Joe bubblegum.
Sure.
Right? It's like brightly colored. And I probably had walked past that many, many times and thought, boy, I really wish I could have some of that gum. And of course, we would never buy it. Really wish I could have some of that gum every day. Really, really wish I could have some of that. Until one day, I decided just to steal it.
Ooh.
And I took a couple of handfuls and I stuck it in my pocket.
Handfuls? I like that you didn't start with one. You went right for it.
Lifting merchandise. And I either stuck it in my pockets or maybe I think at that age I loved carrying a little purse around with me. But then I got home and realized, oh no, if my mom sees that I have this, she's going to know she didn't pay for it. So now I've got to cover that up. So I went and got a jar from the kitchen, stuffed it all in the jar, then realized
that was a shame stash.
That was a shame stash. Here we go. I've got to cover that up.
Oh.
Went and stuffed it underneath my sister's bed, like way back. And then eventually, I would go get a piece of gum from time to time. It was my little place that I would go. And then eventually my mom did find it.
Okay.
But still had to cover it up. I lied and told her that somebody from the store had given it to me. And there's no way she bought that. But it just kept escalating over and over and over. And I just had to keep covering it up more and more and more. And I to this day, my siblings listen to this podcast. We can all go tell mom that's what was going on. But to this day, I don't know that
the truth is finally revealed.
I don't know that I ever came clean with her.
You never came clean?
I don't know that I ever did.
So it's appropriate to publicly come clean now, all these years later.
I feel so free. Thank you, Say More community, for allowing me to unburden myself from that.
I decided that when I feel shame, like I said, I hide. I kind of run and hide, in fact. I was thinking of a time I was probably, 11 or 12, and I was getting stuff out of the garage, and I knocked all the bikes into my dad's car and scratched it.
Oh, no.
A real big scratch.
No.
And when I tell you I got on that bike and rode...
You pedaled away from your shame.
Pedaled away from the shame, and I landed at the neighborhood pool where I stayed, I don't know, 12 hours. I was there the whole day. I think eventually the lifeguards were like, it's time for you to go home now.
And your stomach was probably in knots whole time.
Sure, it was not a relaxing pool day. I was churning the whole time.
Oh, no.
And I can't really remember what happened when I got home. They definitely knew. I can't remember, but I pedaled for my life. and as recently as this summer, you already know this story, but when I backed into Matt's car.
Oh, yes, that's right.
So I was taking my kids to camp. Typically, another family that we carpooled with did the morning. And this family, they were always on time. And they were always early, actually. And they were always put together. And our family is like the Hot Mess Express. And my kids would be running out to the car, holding their shoes and shoving a piece of bread in their mouth because we didn't have time for an appropriate breakfast.
The shame scene is already set.
It's already set, right? And it was, for whatever reason, it was my morning. I had offered, or I was going to do the morning carpool. And so I'm leaving and I'm feeling frazzled and I got to get there in time. I don't want this family to know. By the way, I'm very close friends with these people. They love me dearly. And yet I'm still feeling like they're going to think I'm such a mess.
That's how it works.
And so the last thing my husband says to me, he goes, hang on, I'll go move my car for you.
Okay.
We have a single driveway. His car was parked behind me. I needed the bigger car. I can see it with my eyes. It's not concealed in any way. It's right there in the driveway. And all I am thinking about is don't be late for this family.
That's it.
I'm so I'm, come on. Get in the car. And I throw that thing in reverse and down the driveway, smack into the car that had been there the whole time.
And even he had told you a minute earlier, hey, I'm going to go move that.
I'm going to go move that.
Nope.
And you just hear that.
Oh, it's awful.
That awful sound.
It's an awful, awful sound.
And I'm like, oh no. And so I jump out of the car. I'm trying to assess the damage. I can't really tell. The kids are looking around. But even still, all I'm thinking about is you can't be late.
That's it.
For camp.
Yes.
So I get back in the car. And my husband so nonchalantly walks around, moves his car, and I peel out of that driveway like a bat out of hell. And my kids are like, aren't you going to tell him? Mom, where are you going? And I'm like,
no, kids.
No, we're not. Shush. And I go down the road and I skirt it, Tokyo drift into this kid's driveway to make sure we get to camp. By the way, I'm sure we were 15 minutes early. And I would like all of the, marriage counselors who are listening. I did immediately go home and tell my husband. And he was very gracious. And he actually kind of laughed because he's not part of the Hot Mess Express family. He is very put together. I'm the Hot Mess Express mom with two kind of hot mess kids. And he's all orderly, and he would never in a million years back into a car that was not hidden. It was so clearly right there. And he was very sweet about it, and it was fine, and that's what bumpers are for. And really, it's okay. But it was, my instinct was like, get out of here.
Get out of here.
We are not stopping to have a conversation. We are not surveying the damage. We are peeling out and getting down the road as fast. I want to run away from my shame.
That's your go-to.
I'm getting on a bike. I'm getting in a car. I'm physically running.
Whatever can get me away as fast as possible is that's what I'm going to gravitate to. I am 100% certain there are people listening who right now are saying, me too, Andy. That is me too.
And I'm so glad. And if you see me in real life, I can show you the video from my doorbell camera. Because now we can laugh about it. But I was not laughing about it then. All right, so let's get into our question. You might have heard this in part one, but we're going to revisit it again because there's a lot to unpack here. Can you say more about how to keep your cool with your kids during the preteen years when all they do is point out your failures? For someone who has chronically low self-esteem and internalizes everything, all the self-talk in the world about being a child of God and actually telling myself that I'm enough and that God gave me these kids for a reason doesn't do much. How do you deal with that without giving a churchy answer? Such a great question. And you can see why we needed 2 episodes to even start to unravel that.
Absolutely.
Speaking of, can you give us a previously on Lost? Can you recap our shame part 1 and sort of what we've already covered?
What we've already covered. So some of the major concepts we established: shame is incredibly pervasive. And we even kind of explored that a little bit in our story time to kick off this episode. We experience shame all the time. And then the way shame works in our system is it develops these neural pathways that get kind of wired together with beliefs that we have about ourselves. We internalize that, and then we just start walking on those same pathways over and over and over and over again until our experience of shame becomes something completely unconscious to us. On top of that, facing our shame feels terrible. So we've got those 2 things happening together that sort of motivate us to keep our shame hidden while we're also experiencing it all the time, which is as we're even naming that, you can kind of understand how much of our energy that would take up to keep that at bay, to keep it hidden, to keep trying to maneuver so that we can stay away from facing or feeling the awfulness of shame.
And we're feeling it essentially all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, that's it.
All the time. So that brings us today to, all right, let's say more about what does shame tell us to do. When that is happening, we know, okay, it does not want us to face it from the front. Big idea, shame tells us to hide. Now, that hiding might look like running away.
Yeah.
That hiding might look like covering it up. That hiding might look like just turning away somehow. Big idea, shame tells us to hide. Now, when I say that our system is kind of telling us to hide, there are different components of our system. So we're talking about the biological component of our system. Shame tells us to hide because shame feels awful in our bodies. We even kind of named it as it feels a little bit like you're dying and disappearing all at once. It's a terrible discomfort in our bodies. So there's biological reasons why we want to hide. There's psychological reasons why we want to turn away from or run away from it. Shame comes along with these beliefs about ourselves that are awful. So that's part of what's going on. There's social aspects of the system that tell us to hide. Our being able to name shame or face it from the front is not what's the word we want to look for? Supported socially. And then there's also spiritual aspects of the system. We have a part of our system where there are some spiritual truths that are happening that would motivate us to not want to look at our shame, that would motivate us to want to hide from it. So if you put all that together in the system, it's all going to say, cover it up so that I can't see it myself and so that other people can't see it. Because if we do, let someone else see it, I'm going to get rejected. I'm going to be abandoned. And that is a darkness that is too scary and too terrible to face. And on top of that, I'm also going to experience that same rejection within myself. So for all of those reasons, shame says hide. We tend to respond to that by moving away from others rather than moving towards them.
Like getting on a bike and pedaling for our lives.
That's it. And then at the same time, again, we're also experiencing that same separation internally in our own selves. Here's the kicker. We have to have connection to survive. We're created by a relational God to be relational. So now we have this battle where shame is saying, move away. Everything in me is saying, move towards. What are we going to do with that? It requires so much energy for us to figure out some way to maneuver through that, to figure out some way to be able to exist in that. And it is largely happening completely unconscious to us all the time. All the time. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about how that shows up. How do we hide? We've said a little bit, well, we run away or we cover up. There's hundreds of ways that we hide. We're going to just explore a few of the more common ones, and we're going to flesh those out a little bit so that we can all get a little bit better at recognizing when we're trying to hide from our shame. We can get a little bit better at becoming more aware of when it's happening so that ultimately we can end up doing something different with it than hiding. All right. So we're going to start. Well, let me also say as we're talking about these, we're going to find ourselves recognizing, oh, I've used that one. I think I've used that one too. I think I've used that one as well. Our systems are so savvy and sophisticated. And so what ends up happening is our systems kind of learn which of these roles or which of these cover-ups would work best in certain situations. And then it sort of chooses them for us. So you might find as we're naming these, well, there's one that I think I do more often. You probably will also find yourself saying, yeah, I think maybe I even utilize all of these. You're definitely going to be saying, oh, I know somebody who does use these. And as we do a lot in this podcast, this can be helpful for us to be able to sit with more compassion and more compassionate curiosity with ourselves and with other people.
So listeners can be playing a shame response bingo. And they can have a card for self and a card.
That's a great idea.
A card for others. Or just making mental notes of like, that sounds like somebody I know.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name these and then I'm going to give us some clues. You can include these on your bingo cards.
Okay.
Because each of these roles have catchphrases. That's one way that we can kind of recognize. These roles sometimes have patterns of behavior that they utilize. And again, if we kind of get more familiar with those, it's going to be a lot easier to recognize when I've gone into hiding or when I'm trying to run away or when I'm trying to cover it up. All right, here we go. Let's start with my personal favorite, the judge.
The judge, okay. Oh, they get like catchy names?
They get names too. Okay. Yes. Okay. So this judge does not operate out of due process. You are guilty every time.
Okay.
Okay. The judge will sometimes the judge might sound like, I'm going to judge myself first before you can judge me. Sometimes the judge might sound like, I'm going to judge you first before you can judge me.
In a scenario, I'm judging myself first so that, okay.
Exactly.
I'm beating someone else to the punch.
Right. Something has happened and I have felt some semblance of shame.
Got it.
All the way from mild embarrassment to deep humiliation. Shame says, we got to cover this up. It's going to be too dark and terrible to face from the front. Which one of these roles do we want to use to cover up?
So sometimes that might be, I'm such a hot mess.
Completely.
That was part of
yours, right?
Right.
Sometimes it might sound like you're such a hot mess.
Yes. Okay.
You're a worse hot mess than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, as we're naming these, you might find yourself starting to say, okay, but Emily, I don't understand. Believing that about myself or believing that about somebody else, that's outside of my value system. If I'm judging myself, wouldn't I feel even more shame? Yes. We have to just remember the only purpose of these is just to hide. It's just a place to go hide. It does not count the cost. That's not the part of my brain that is operating here. It just wants to find a place to hide out, to feel covered up. And so if that works, then all right, mission accomplished.
Okay.
All right, so the judge will say, I'm going to judge myself first before you can judge me, or I'm going to judge you before you can judge me. Often you'll know if you're utilizing the judge if you find yourself using should statements. I should be doing fill in the blank. I should not be doing fill in the blank. I shouldn't have done fill in the blank. I should be doing more fill in the blank. The judge loves a should statement.
Okay.
So that's a clue. If I find myself using those statements, that might be a clue that I'm stepping into this sort of judge alter ego in order to try to hide from or cover up my shame.
Okay.
Okay. The judge often utilizes just try harder. You just need to try harder. You just need to try harder to have more discipline. You just need to try harder to be better. That's another one of those catchphrases that if you can kind of catch yourself, oh, this might be a way that I'm trying to hide out from my shame. Perfectionism is often a sign that I'm utilizing the judge as that role to hide out from my shame. And then, as we're getting well acquainted with this particular role, where are we all thinking we can find so much of this? Social media, right? Social media is, if stepping into that judge role is one of the ways that I like to hide from my shame, social media is a great place to hide out. And I might find myself going to it, again, completely unaware that that's what I'm looking for.
That would make a lot of sense.
All right.
I don't think they know.
What's that? The social media?
That's what they're using social media for.
No. I think, sometimes, at least for me, if you are in the mindset of, well, but I don't go on and judge other people, well, maybe I'm not doing it in the comments, or maybe I'm not doing it explicitly. It can be really hard to tell if that's happening for me unconsciously, because that may have been a routine that got started long ago in my nervous system, and now it's just going to keep running. All right. It also might show up, another role that sometimes we use is one that I call the victim. Now, I want to make a little bit of a differential distinction here, because this word gets tossed around a lot.
Sure.
Sometimes when we use the word victim, it is in the truest sense of someone who has been victimized. When we're using the word victim here, we're using it as sort of a way that I go to hide, a place that I go to hide, a place that I go to try to stay covered up, or a place that I go to try to cover up either other people from seeing the shame that I'm feeling, or just recognizing within myself. Sometimes the victim's catchphrase might sound like, all I was trying to do was fill in the blank, or I guess I can't do anything right. That's another catchphrase that sometimes we might find ourselves saying if we're in this particular role.
I guess I'm just the worst.
I guess I'm just the worst. Sometimes it can show up as a little bit of it can take on a martyr kind of flavor. I'm just trying to help, right? That sometimes if I find myself saying those types of things, it might be a sign that somewhere along the line, I am feeling some shame, and this is a way that I'm trying to cover it up. If we kind of compare a little bit, if the judge role says try harder, the victim role would say don't even try because it's not going to help anyway. The best way to maintain or keep connection is for somebody to feel sympathy for me, for somebody to overfunction for me. Often, if I find myself in the victim role, I'll shut down. People may name that as giving up. I actually prefer to name it as a protective mode, because that's really what's happening. Is that shame, again, is so terrible to face from the front, both within myself and in the relationship.
All of these are protective mode.
I have to go to some place where I can feel protected.
I've decided instead of bingo, this is more like guess who.
Oh, I love
and
that.
And we're both sitting in front of our boards and just like, is yours wearing judicial robes? Is he saying should a lot? I think you have the judge.
That's it. You got it. That's it. Okay, next one that we're going to look at is one that we can call the rebel. The rebel's catchphrase might sound like, I can do whatever I want. The rebel's behavior might show up as defiance, especially defiance just for defiance sake. A rebel, I might know that I've taken on the role of a rebel if I say, you can't tell me what to do. Nobody can tell me what to do. And it might show up as someone who has taken on this distinction of, I'm the one who is not a follower. So all of these different catchphrases or behavioral patterns, again, we want to get really well acquainted with these so that we can know, am I utilizing this right now? And if I am, there's a good chance that I have felt some shame somewhere, and now I am using this to try to hide or try to cover up.
All right, let me make sure I've got them all for my Guess Who board. And I think there's more, but the judge, the victim, and it's a little bit victim in quotes, the judge, the victim, and the rebel.
The rebel.
Okay.
All right, now on the other side of the coin for rebel is one that we might call the chameleon. The chameleon, if I'm taking on the role of chameleon, well, now instead of I can do whatever I want, I'm going to be my own thing, I'm going to be different, I'm not going to be like anybody else. The chameleon says, I can be all things to all people. The chameleon says, I can do whatever I need to do. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to fit in at any cost. Even if that means it doesn't match up with my values, what I'm doing right now is light years away from my actual values. This is where we would start to name it as people pleasing.
I know. It sounded
right?
too familiar.
Here we go. And if you remember back in our boundaries episode when we talked about people pleasing, you kind of gave everybody a little teaser because you said that you had come across something that said, yeah, I saw something at one point that said that people pleasing is actually selfish. And we decided in that episode we weren't going to go there. I don't know that I like using the word selfish with people pleasing. What I do feel comfortable using it as is it is a way that we protect ourselves. It is. And so in that way, people pleasing is actually about me. It is actually about me providing something for myself. It's just that it very much shows up as I'm providing something for somebody else. In reality, I might be using that as a way to hide from my own shame or cover up my own shame.
Wow. I was so ahead of the books.
You really were. I like to compare the chameleon to Mystique. For all you Marvel fans out there, Mystique was...
I thought you said mesquite, like barbecue. And I was like, what? Where is she going with this?
Mystique, the shapeshifter.
Mystique. Is she the blue?
She was the blue, yeah.
Okay.
That can fit in wherever she goes. The chameleon role might look like compliance, high levels of compliance. It might look like something we call fawning. That's a new psychological term that we're starting to try out in different situations where it's sort of an extreme level of compliance. So the chameleon can show up in all of those different ways in order to be all things to all people, again, as a way of being able to hide out or cover up the shame that I am feeling in that moment, or shame that's just sort of baseline running all the time. And we take on these roles very early on, and they just become second nature to us. So the first part of this work, and we started in our last episode, again, is just getting really well acquainted with what shame is, how it works, how it shows up. And now we're starting to also say we want to get really well acquainted with what it looks like when we're trying to hide from our shame. When these roles start to take place, we can find ourselves in what we might call a shame spiral or a shame hole. And I think everybody listening can identify with this experience where maybe I try out the judge role first. And then that works until it doesn't. And then I try out the chameleon role. And then that works until it doesn't. And then I try out another one, and we kind of bounce around. And before I know it, I am so deep in all of these different layers of covering it up that I feel like I'm in a hole that I can't get out of. And it is such a darkness to experience when we're in that kind of a place. Again, being able to be really aware of what's happening is a big first step in being able to do something with it. And when I'm able to do something different with it, well, now I can open up more freedom. Now I can open up more joy. Now I can open up more potential for me to step into the fullness of who God has created me to be. All right, so if we go back to our Guess Who game boards, and let's remember, we probably have a favorite role that we step into to hide from our shame, but all of us will utilize all of these roles from time to time. So if we wanted to sum it up, if your character is using activity to hide from or cover up the shame, then I'm probably going to guess that your character is the judge. If your character is utilizing inactivity to hide from or cover up the shame, then I'm probably going to guess that your character is the victim. If your character is utilizing standing out to hide from or cover up the shame, I'm probably going to guess that you're in the role of the rebel. And if your character is using blending in to hide from or cover up their shame, I'm probably going to guess that you're utilizing the role of chameleon.
Okay, so we're increasing our awareness of what's going on up until this point. The shame that's just sort of, like you said, baseline in our bodies, or maybe more acute depending on what's going on. And we've got our bingo cards and we've got our Guess Who boards. Now, what can we do differently with it?
What can we do differently?
Give us something.
Give us, what's another option? All right, so step one is what we've been naming. In order to do something differently with my shame, I have to know how shame operates. I have to know even what to look for to recognize what I've been doing all along.
So that's what we've been talking about.
That's what we've been talking about. And then the next part of it is to do the opposite of what shame tells us to do. Shame tells us to hide or cover it up. So what we want to do instead is we want to uncover it. We want to let it be exposed. We want to bring it out of hiding. We want to let it be vulnerable. We want to let light shine on it. I sometimes will tell my clients when we start working together, and I usually say, sorry, not sorry, that I'm going to be like a spelunker in a cave. I'm going to have my headlamp on, and part of my job is to use compassionate curiosity to just
dig down
it, because shame, it's because of the way that it tells us to hide. It exists in the deep, dark crevices. There are layers upon layers upon layers of hiding. We are going to go in and we're going to see, where has it been in the corners, underneath the refrigerator? Where is the mold? Where is it growing, right?
In all my drawers and closets.
We're going to get all the way, those shame stash bags that have been pushed all the way to the back. So that is the work of starting to be intentional about looking for it. Now, it's not just, when we're doing that though, it's not just exposing it for exposing its sake. And I think sometimes in faith communities, we have adopted this practice that we have said, it just needs to be exposed. You just need to say it. You just need to say it in front of a bunch of people.
Oh, we love that.
Right?
Get on stage and tell us about it.
Get on stage. You just need to go say it to somebody, a clergy person.
Yeah.
That is part of it. 100%. Everyone listening, hear me say, that is absolutely part of it. We also want to say, what are we exposing it to? We want, when I am uncovering my shame, when I am being vulnerable about it, I absolutely want to make sure that it is going to receive a felt sense of acceptance when I expose it, that it's going to receive a lot of safety when I expose it, that it's going to receive a high level of compassion and grace when I expose it. Because if I don't, everybody listening can probably already figure out where I'm going with this. It's already vulnerable. And I'm choosing to make it more susceptible to potentially being shamed again. If it gets shamed again, it's just going to go into hiding even stronger.
Forget it.
Forget it.
Now,
right?
When you say what it's exposed to, do you mean who it's exposed to?
That's a big part of it. Safe relationship is a big part of it, which is why sometimes doing the work with a therapist first is an essential part of the healing, because the hiding has become so established that there have to be professional levels of safety there in order for it to start being willing to come out of hiding. Sometimes that safety might be, again, in your faith communities, it might be a group that you have a lot of relational equity with, and you've already built up a lot of experiences of safety. And so the shame can feel okay coming out of hiding. We've talked about a lot in parenting, that parenting can sometimes be a shame minefield because of our own internal shame. In parenting, if I am creating an environment for my child to be able to name their shame, and I'm able to manage myself, I'm able to stay consistent, I'm able to do that, then that can be a place where the shame can be exposed, or we can be vulnerable with it, and it can still receive that felt sense of acceptance and safety and love.
So not just exposure for exposure's sake.
In fact, if I'm using exposure for exposure's sake, there's a good chance, if that's all that's there, there's a good chance that shame could end up being harmed again in a way that it's just going to stay even more stuck. It's just going to stay even more in hiding.
Well, I'll do you one better.
Okay.
I think exposure for exposure's sake is just the chameleon.
Ooh, okay, wait, say more.
Because having grown up in faith communities and feeling like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, it's now my turn to get up and say something very vulnerable about myself, because I need to please the people in this room.
So good. So what's happening in that moment then, right, is you're going through the act of what looks like exposing my shame. In reality, you've had to separate from actually feeling it, and you've just gone into another layer of hiding. So somebody could be watching that whole scenario take place and say, "Oh, look at Andy. She's being so vulnerable with her shame." Internally, you've gone into even more hiding.
100%.
And then we find ourselves, like we said, these mechanisms, these ways of being able to cover it up, they become like second nature to us until we're able to get into an environment, get into a relationship where there is some safety, some acceptance, lots and lots of grace, in order for us to start doing something little different, even with the chameleon part of myself, right? There's an illustration that I heard a couple of months ago. It was a mother talking about how she's trying to teach her toddler how to interact with her shame differently. Because, like we also mentioned in our last episode, we start experiencing shame at a very, very young age. And we don't have to consciously choose to hide it. Our system tells us to do it. And so, as a toddler, for those of you who are parents or work with kids, you know what a toddler does when they feel shame. They put their own hands over their face, right? They physically even kind of go into hiding. And she said that she has been practicing getting down on her toddler's level and just very gently and tenderly saying to her, "Can you look at mommy? Can you look at me? Can you take your hands down so that you can see me?" And you even just hear in the way that I'm saying that, right? The tenderness and the grace That's what needs to be happening at a felt level for me to feel safe enough to let my shame be exposed to do something different with it. Now, if I'm able to experience that, ultimately, if I can carry that into my relationship with God, that is a level of grace and acceptance and compassion and love that can be a game changer when it comes to me being able to expose my shame or name my shame in a way where I can receive that felt awareness. But for some people, it's like we've said before, I trust my experience of someone rather than the words that they're telling me.
Right.
And for some people, you might have to be in a room with a therapist or someone who's trained in being able to let you experience that at a bodily level first before it feels safe to let God into those very, very vulnerable and painful places. So, all right, if we're reframing it in the light of that compassion and we're shining a light of acceptance on it to reduce its power to heal, let's call back to our question.
Yeah.
When we receive that acceptance in the name of, in facing my shame, in naming my shame, now my thinking brain can come back online and I can be more objective about truth. Like our question said, all the people in the world reminding me who I am as a child of God, or who my identity is in being loved by God, just doesn't seem to work. Correct. Until I start to get a consistent, repeated experience of being able to expose my shame, to do something different with it, to let it come out of hiding, and then receive consistently that acceptance, that grace, that love. And when I'm saying that, let me also make a little caveat. I'm not saying bringing grace to the shame is saying it's okay, whatever I did that maybe is resulting in the shame is okay. What I'm saying is we're bringing grace to the experience of shame. It makes sense that you're feeling shame right now. It makes sense that you felt humiliated in that. And you are worth being loved and accepted even as you are feeling that. You have value to me even in the face of your shame. And it can't just be the words that I'm hearing. It has to work its way into a felt experience. So when I can start to get that, now I can start to take that objective truth and believe it a little bit more. I'm going to give us a couple of easy ways or a little more doable ways to start to practice this. One that I like is, and sometimes I use this with clients, I give them an exercise called a shame inventory. Sounds super fun, right?
Another game. So many shame games.
And what you do is you choose a period of time. It could be a couple hours, half a day, a whole day. And all you do is you just kind of pay attention to how many times you use should statements for yourself. And whenever you notice, I just used another should statement, you just make a tally mark on a piece of paper.
That's should all over that.
That's right. And then that just is it's a doable way to start practicing awareness of how often I'm feeling shame and what I'm doing with it. Also, starting to let ourselves just name the shame out loud in low stakes situations can feel like a good place to start. I'll give you a personal example. A couple weeks ago, I was at work and I was coming out of the bathroom and I hit my elbow on the door handle, and I was probably at my limit already for the day. So what did I do? I got mad at the door.
Sure, that makes sense.
Right? And very angry look on my face. Stupid door. I can't believe it. Now, I probably had already unconsciously started shaming myself for even hitting my elbow on the door. Suffice it to say, I was feeling shame and then had done something that also was kind of ridiculous in the moment. Unbeknownst to me, one of my coworkers was down the hallway and observed the whole thing. And when I looked up and saw him, immediately I felt so much more embarrassment. And so we both started laughing So there was a lot of acceptance and safety there. That was a really good opportunity for me to go ahead and let myself say, oh my goodness, I can't believe you saw that. I feel so embarrassed. And of course, we laughed it off, and I still felt very safe in that relationship. But a situation like that, where I can, again, just start to let myself in those low stakes situations,
practice saying it out loud.
Practice even saying it out loud. I felt so guilty for doing that. I felt so mortified when you just saw me do that. That can just be a helpful situation. All right, we're going to end with one last litmus test for us. As we're starting to practice this, sometimes it can be helpful to let myself recognize how much this is taking effect. What's a way that, as I'm starting to practice, what's a way that I can recognize that I'm starting to feel more comfortable doing something different with my shame? I think one of the best litmus tests that we have is it helps us know how much of that internal reservoir of love and acceptance I have, how full that reservoir is. It can help us to know how full that reservoir is when I'm noticing what I'm doing with my shame. So here's how it might play out. Let's say my reservoir has been really filled up. I've had lots of experiences recently where I've been in environments where I can receive a lot of that acceptance and love. And you and I get into an argument. And let's say it comes out that I have lied to you about something. And you say, I found out that you lied to me. All right, I'm going to feel a lot of shame in that moment. What I do in that moment is going to be a really good indicator of how much or how full my reservoir of security is to draw from.
So not so much the fact that you're feeling shame, but what you're going to do.
What I'm going to do with it.
With that shame.
If I immediately get defensive, if I immediately start blaming you, maybe I start judging you. Well, what's wrong with you? I can't believe that you would even, accuse me of something like that. If that's my knee-jerk reaction, that's a really good sign that reservoir is probably pretty low. And that's good data for me. That's a sign, okay, I've got to get myself in some environments where I can get that reservoir filled back up. If, on the other hand, I'm able to say to you, oh, you're right, I am so sorry. I'm feeling really embarrassed about that right now.
I did indeed steal that gum.
I did indeed steal that gum. And I'm able to own that. I'm able to do something differently with my shame, whether it's right in the moment or pretty quickly thereafter. That is also a really good sign of, okay, I've got a pretty full reservoir. Let's keep doing what I'm doing to keep that reservoir filled. And then let's keep moving forward with that. What we tend to do instead is, based on what I do with my shame, I tend to double down. Right. I pay attention to the defensiveness, or I pay attention to the hiding, and then I tend to try to do more of that. This litmus test lets us see that's actually not what we want to focus on. What I want to focus on instead is, oh, that's a sign that I need more of a felt experience of love and acceptance and compassionate curiosity.
So not even saying, oh, I shouldn't have been defensive, be less defensive next time.
Correct.
Which also sounds like more shame.
It is.
So instead of focusing on that, the outcome and your behavior in that situation, it can be a data point of, I am not having that felt sense of security,
yes,
safety in my relationships,
yes.
Love and acceptance,
yes,
because that was my knee-jerk reaction.
And so I need to get to more of what's filling up that reservoir so that I can keep moving forward with trying to do something differently.
So less just trying harder.
That's it. This is how savvy and sophisticated it is, and it's how it can really be a challenge to do something differently. When I'm able to do that, we're opening up a whole new way of being able to create, to live out of freedom, joy, to love differently in my relationships, and then ultimately reflect attributes of God in a different way.
Well, I'm thinking about our question, and it sounds like this mom has been trying harder the whole time. Mm-hmm. And eventually you get to the end of trying harder and it's not getting you anywhere.
Correct.
And we're saying, let's flip that. Let's use that to inform what we need, what environments we need to get around, mm-hmm. what personal levels of security, acceptance, safety, and love we got to get filled. Mm-hmm. And then therefore the behavior and the mindset is what changes afterwards.
You got
it. It's an outcome. It's an overflow, I should say, rather mm-hmm. than it's an overflow of what we've got going on.
You got it.
Rather than trying harder. So if you are been joining us and you're listening and you're thinking, man, I have been trying so mm-hmm. hard for mm-hmm. so many years mm-hmm. in so many areas. I'm beating my head against the wall. Why isn't it working? Because it was never going to.
It was never going to.
So take that, evaluate with compassionate curiosity in safe relationships, start to mine down into the shame or have a professional help you do mm-hmm. that, right? And then out of the overflow will come something different.
That's it.
We are so glad you're here journeying with us on the shame journey, in the shame games, all the things that we're doing together. We are glad that you're here. If you want us to say more about a topic that interests you, maybe you've got some follow-up questions, there are lots of ways to reach out to us. Check the show notes. You can go online, social media. There's even something where you can record your voice. All of that is right there for you because we want to hear more from you so that we can say more. Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you for joining us, and we will be here for next time.